Good morning and welcome to INCRadio, South Central States. Today, we're having a little bit technical difficulty, so you might see us switching a little bit. But I just want to welcome everyone this morning. Thank you for joining us. Today, our topic will be on historical figures. If you could talk to anyone in history, who would you talk to? And what would you ask them? So let's go ahead and welcome our guest.
Okay, I think you can log off of your phone now. I think we're up.
Okay, are we up and running now?
Yeah, one more thing. Tech, yeah, go ahead and get the doc ready. There you go.
So while we're waiting, I do want to welcome, we do have a guest who is not here with us here in Texas. Guest, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, good morning. How are you, Sister Arnie, Brother Nate? This is Brother Robert Topalis from here in the Sunshine State of Florida, and I'm happy to be here today. I'm really excited to talk about this topic, and of course, having been originally from Fort Worth, Texas, too, I feel kind of like I'm at home or coming back home.
So welcome. Thank you for joining us. I saw your segment earlier when you were talking about the winter, and it's still freezing here, so it's no fun to be here right now.
Well, with winters and cold are such a subjective, opinion, right? Because as you heard on our show, for us down here, if the temperature dropped below 50, then people are scrambling for their winter coats.
Okay, and then next to me, I've got Nate. Nate's not behind the scenes today.
Yeah, I'm in front of the camera. Excuse us for scrambling a little bit this morning. Our computer froze, but I guess it was that cold out.
Maybe. So we're good though. All
It's like
right.
the iguanas in Florida. They temperature drops below 40 and then they just fall apart.
We're good though. All right. So we did drop in the question of the day, and it is, if you could have a conversation with anyone from history, who would it be and what would you talk about? So uh type in your chat who you would want to talk to, and then hopefully you guys will see it today. Okay. So let's go ahead and start with Robert, since you are our guest. If you could talk to anyone in history, who would it be?
Oh wow! When you first told me about what the topic was, there were so many things that you kind of go through your mind about, like, well, who is it that you want to talk to, and what are the kind of questions that you want to ask them? Because hopefully, what you'd want to do is to be able to meet someone who is able to give you either some answers to some burning questions that you had, or some perspective on things and why things are kind of the way that they are today. And it was tough because there's just so many different historical figures that are out there. But I think that when you look back at history, for me, I've always looked for people who just have sort of this outlook on innovation, because for me that's such a big thing, like people who are able to come up with these ideas and think outside the box. So I mean, for me it was like a cross between like a Thomas Edison or Ben Franklin. And honestly, I was thinking Ben Franklin, I think, would be a really, really cool person to sit down and have a latte with, because one, I don't think he drinks caffeine, but two, I think it would have been really cool because he was such an iconic figure in so many ways, not just from inventions and obviously things that he was involved in that helped change a lot of us, and a lot of people also don't realize his influence in politics back then as well. So Ben Franklin was living during a time here in America when things were just really in a state of turmoil, and I think he'd be a really cool person to sit down and interview.
I have to agree with you. He was actually who I thought I wanted to talk to, just because, not only did he do his inventions, but he got to sign, the Constitution. So I thought that was pretty cool. But
He was
he's actually not the
very
one I want to
eccentric.
talk to.
If
Oh,
you
was
read
he?
about his stuff outside of politics, very eccentric. Yeah,
Yeah, but
Oh
he's not
yeah,
my
yeah,
person.
I think he was.
yeah. That's why I was hoping he wasn't your person.
I think he was the one that wanted the official bird of the United States to be like the turkey or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, something funny.
Well,
To give you an idea of how eccentric he was.
What about you, Nate? Who would you talk to?
Oh, I don't think they have a name, but like the a librarian at the Library of Alexandria.
And first of all, with the Library of Alexandria.
So like in ancient times, they had a library in Alexandria in Egypt, and they kept a bunch of scrolls, a bunch of information, and it burned down, or people wanted the information removed. But just to know like what kind of like knowledge the ancient world had that we had lost. And I think about today, like how we're so reliant with everything being on the internet.
Hmm.
Whenever people want to know something, they're like, "Hey, just Google it, and it's out there." It's like, well, if all those servers for whatever reason go down, like that information is going to be lost. You're going to have another Library of Alexandria moment where you're going to have a whole lot of knowledge just completely erased. So I've always wondered, like, how far back maybe we would have been set back, you know, by what had been lost from there. And just to ask that person, like, hey, what kind of stuff is here in this library?
Hmm.
And some examples of, maybe that they would think would be interesting to, especially someone in the future.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So before I say mine, we actually have one in the comment. Naya had put something in there, and she said, if you guys look at our screen, do you guys see what we're doing new? We're putting your comments on the screen. So the more comments you put, you might see yours up there. But she did say that it would be interesting to have a conversation with President Jimmy Carter. Reading some of his life stories since his passing made me want to read about him more. And I think that's pretty cool because for me, before, like, I didn't have fascinations a lot with presidents. And then I read about JFK. And then ever
Hmm.
since then, I wanted to read like about other presidents. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But my person, if I could talk to anybody in history, would be Amelia Earhart.
Amelia Earhart. Oh, that'd be a good one.
Because I'm all about flying and everything. So that's who I would want to talk to. And the first thing I would ask her is one, what motivated her to decide to like try to fly around the world by herself, right? And then the second thing I would ask her is like, what happened? Where did you go?
Yeah,
Since-
like where are you right now? It's the
right? She disappeared.
So you can solve the mystery.
Is she on that
yeah.
island where all the celebrities who supposedly died went? You know how they have that thing where they
I
say
thought it
these.
was Papua New Guinea
I
where
don't know.
she ended up.
I don't know, but that would be interesting.
Well, and,
Yeah.
and you know what's interesting about her too is the fact that she, in her time, I mean, she was really a pioneer, right? She was a pioneer for doing things that not many women, if any women, were doing. Even most men weren't attempting to do what Amelia Earhart was doing. So she's truly a pioneer for that era.
Yeah, I mean that's like I said, just even because my other thing would have been the Wright brothers and just the fact that they invented the airplane. I thought that was cool, but
And for someone like the Wright brothers, like they couldn't Google anything. They couldn't
exactly.
go to the library for
And they
anything.
had no reference. There was
Right.
nothing flying in the air. That's just something they thought of.
Yeah. There's always been like concepts of like flight and like trying to imitate like what birds do. You see
Hmm.
like a lot of old video of people, making makeshift
Stuff.
flying. Yes. Oh, that'd be the best way to describe it. And
Okay, before we go to our next
yeah,
person,
yeah.
let's go ahead and do our thinking cap just to make sure we get it. So, for those of you who are new and you don't know what the thinking cap is, this is a question that we ask every show, and then we tally up your scores, and whoever wins at the end of the month gets a prize. And just remember, when you put an answer, just put the letter, do not put the actual answer. Okay. So, our first thinking cap question is Alexander the Great was born in which geographical region? Was he born A in Greece, B in Rome, C in Turkey, or D Macedonia? So where was Alexander the Great born? So while you guys are giving your answers, let's go to our second person. Robert, who's your second person?
Well, I think the second person that I have again along sort of the path of innovation, right? And then if we get to a third person, the third person is not really about innovation, but this my second person would have been Steve Jobs.
Ooh,
People who don't know
why?
Steve Jobs, he is the person who started Apple and just again, there's a lot of tech giants that are out there, a lot of people who founded technology companies. But I think what's unique about Steve Jobs, and the reason why I'd want to sit down and have a conversation with him, is he literally has transformed the way that we use and the way that we communicate with each other, and the way that we use these mobile devices. And he's essentially just blown the doors off in terms of potential, right? Because now we're walking around literally with mini computers in our hands. And 20 years ago, that wasn't something, 20, 25 years ago, it wasn't something conceivable that we would be where we are today with
Yeah,
the access to information. And especially now with AI, and how AI is now beginning to proliferate in every aspect of our lives. A lot of that stuff is, I think, founded in what Steve Jobs was really a catalyst for.
pretty cool. Let's go to our chat. I have Mark Hargis, and he said, if I had the opportunity to sit down from history and have a podcast with them, which would have been interesting, it would be Abraham Lincoln with his presidency and everything he did. It would interest me to know his reasons. I thought about Abraham Lincoln too, because he did a lot, and he's a well-known historical figure that, kids even get a day off on his birthday, right? So I think that would be cool to have a chat with him.
Wait, we do? We
Yeah.
get a day off on his
Well, you're
birthday?
you're not a you're not a child. You're not in school.
What day
School
is that? Is it
They
February,
should
President's
they should have a
it's
Steve
President's Day?
Jobs holiday too, I think. You know.
Jobs Day?
I don't
Yeah,
think he's old
Jobs Day.
enough
He's
yet, you know?
Oh,
I
it's
think
called
they have to
Labor
be
Day though.
dead. They have to be dead for a while to get a holiday named after them, right? So yeah, so that is pretty cool. Abraham Lincoln. What about you, Nate? Who's your second person?
I would like to interview like an ordinary Roman citizen from like the first century, and just I want to get the context of like what everyday life was like back then, because we're used to everything now. Like, okay, I got a car, I got internet, I got a computer in my pocket and whatnot. What if you didn't have all that? Like when you wake up in the morning, like what are you doing at that time? What is that like? Because like what do we do when we wake up in the morning? We're like, oh, let me check my phone, right? Or
Yeah.
let me go to the bathroom. Do they even have bathrooms? Do ordinary Roman citizens have
Oh,
Outhouses, I
they were
guess.
anything?
public bathrooms. They're worse than the bathrooms you find at the beaches here. They're yeah.
So it's just the mechanics of that. It's like, okay, you're hungry. Well, where do you go to get food? Like, I imagine they would go to like a market, but it's like, do you also have a job? Like, how does everything happen for an ordinary citizen? Kind of like in my place,
Hmm.
who's working and this and that. What is their everyday like, and what do they do?
Also, I would ask them, like, how long does it take you to go to work, since they didn't have cars or anything like that, right?
Yeah, they have
Probably had
to
to walk everywhere
walk uphill 20 miles in the
in the
snow.
snow.
Yeah, like our parents did. It was probably worse though for them because they're older than our parents, right?
That's true. See? So
They would have to cross oceans to get to work.
They-
okay. So like I said, my second person would have been the Wright brothers, for them. I love aviation, I love flying, and like we said, there was nothing in the air at the time. It's just like, where did they come up with the concept of creating something where people could sit in and fly?
Yeah, and I think
the
people.
whole concept of flying is just really fascinating. I know that's like you're really into that, Arnie, and so that's to me it's always just fascinating. How do you get this multi-ton piece of metal in the air?
Exactly. Every time I sit on a plane, because I always pray when I'm on a plane just to make sure,
Oh
right?
yeah, oh
I'm
yeah.
wondering, like, this thing is massive. It's huge. When I was flying to Asia, we were on aircrafts that held over 300 passengers. And I'm like, plus all their luggage and everything. How is this thing flying? You know?
Oh yeah, well, through a lot of thrust, yeah, from the engines. We're gonna be scientific about it. But yeah, I mean for me for the most part, like I'm most curious about like ordinary people. So I would think of like maybe somebody in like 18th century America. Like,
Hmm.
what was that like? What are the mechanics of your day? Even in like other countries, like let's say I go back in time to somewhere in like Mongolia. What does their day look like? What
Yeah.
is on their mind? You know.
Yeah. I Okay, so I do have another one on our chat from Lelaine Hargis. Where the Hargises from? Do you know?
Oh, they're in Baton Rouge.
Oh,
Baton
see,
Rouge, yeah.
we really need to go Baton Rouge. So I like this because I think I would agree with her. She says, I would like to talk to my grandparents that we never met. I will tell them how grateful we are to have parents like Mama and Papa. And I think that's something I would do too. Because on my dad's side, I never met my grandparents because they had passed before I was born. So I think that would be interesting just to see, you know, how my dad was when he was a kid and all that stuff, because I don't think he tells us the truth when he says all the stuff he did when he
Right.
was a kid.
And we're just assuming there's no language barriers because on my mom's side it's Chinese and Filipino, and I don't know
Oh,
either
really?
language.
I
Yeah.
didn't know you were Chinese. I'm Chinese too. But that's on my dad's side. So I think that would be good. What about you guys? Would you guys want to meet? Like, do you guys know all of your grandparents?
I just know that like besides the Chinese Filipino side of me, my dad's side, we know that one part goes into French Canada, French Canadian.
Okay.
So I know that part of me is French Canadian. The other side of my dad's side, no idea. I have no idea where that goes. But yeah, it'd be fascinating to like show up and be like, "Hey, I'm your ancestor."
Yeah. You see, you should go trace back, especially if you have European roots. That's a more reason for you to go to Europe. See, you should do that.
Have
Oh,
you
okay.
have you
Think about that.
since we're talking about ancestry, have you guys ever thought about doing one of those DNA tests?
No,
Yeah, absolutely not for
no,
me.
because then everyone's gonna have access to your DNA.
Well, yeah, that's the one thing, and to think that they don't already, I think would be a because they, so much of that information is used in sciences. But I've always thought it was fascinating to find out like what percentage, because you guys are talking about your heritage being like different nationalities, because predominantly
Mhm.
Filipino, right? But I know that like in my background, just based on my relatives, there's probably Portuguese and Spanish, and I'm so often confused for being of Mexican descent. I'm pretty
Same
sure that
here.
I'm going to find that back there. It's
Same here.
Yeah, not me. I'm never. They never think that I'm Mexican. They just think I'm some other Asian instead of Filipino because they like, you're kind of like too white to be
Yeah.
Filipino. So I know we have Spanish blood because my great grandmother was half Spanish, and
Mm.
then my dad's side, like I said, is a Chinese. But
Yeah, and my grandmother on my dad's side, she was fluent in French. She spoke French.
see.
Yeah.
All right, before we continue, we've got one more thinking cap question that we need to ask so that you guys can get your points. So the second question is, which of the following was not written by William Shakespeare? Is it E, The Tale of Two Cities, F, Hamlet, G, Coriolan, I don't know what that is.
Coriolanus.
Sure, that one, and H, Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
C sounds more
I
like a
accidentally put A, B,
galaxy.
C, and D.
Oh, okay, so it should not be A, B, C, and D. Sorry.
I'll be able to figure out later.
Yeah.
If you put either one, yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah, don't worry
E
about it.
for Tale of Two
I'll figure it
Cities,
out.
F for Hamlet, G for what is it?
Coriolanus.
Okay, and H is Romeo and Juliet. So put your answers in the chat, and then that way we can get the points. Let's put up the points from last week so far. This is our running total so far because we've only had one. So we have Oliver who is ahead, but he's only up by 1 point. So y'all could still catch up, right? And then we've got Melanie there and Renz and
I noticed the
Juliet.
strategy though is like even though it's just two questions, like tuning in. If you really want to win the prize, yeah, tuning in gives you a really good chance.
Exactly,
Because the
because
ones who won are the ones that tune in.
exactly, because then other times people don't tune in, so then they don't get their points, right?
Yep.
So as long as you tune in, you have a good chance of winning. So
Yeah,
yes,
this
okay.
is the literal you must be present in order to win scenario, right?
That is so true. Did everyone do their two people?
Yeah.
Is there another person you guys want to talk to?
We just brought up like William Shakespeare. I probably ask him like, did you really write all that? Did you hear about the controversy that he might not have written everything?
No. Who
I
did
think
they say did it?
it might be along the same lines of like who's that inventor? Thomas Edison, right? He's
Yes.
credited with having lots of patents, but he kind of just like owned a bunch of people, his employees, and he would just
Hmm.
take credit for it. He would
Ba-
do the patent.
Basically, what corporate America does today, right? We
Yeah,
we all hire employees, and then they have to sign over their inventions. So that was early stages of it. That's the
yeah. That's the speculation with Shakespeare that he didn't actually write.
for Edison. You mean? That's it.
I think there's always a whole bunch of controversy with everything. So let's go ahead. Oliver also put there who he would like to talk to, and he says he wants to ask Emilio Aguinaldo. His wife was related to him, so I'm assuming his wife's last name is Aguinaldo, and because he did a lot for the Philippines, fighting for freedom of the country. Ooh, see, if it was like somebody Filipino, because I didn't even think about that. I was just thinking of all the American figures. I think I would talk to Jose Rizal,
Yeah,
because he did a lot for the Philippines, right?
that was against the Spanish, right?
I
Was that
guess.
the
I
Spanish
just know
occupation?
he's a national hero.
Yeah,
And he was all about the pen and not the sword. That was his thing. Was about
Yeah.
not fighting, right?
yeah. Let's grab another one.
I think my Filipino historical figure who's more about the fighting would have been Manny Pacquiao. I would
But
talk to
he's not.
him.
He's not technically. He's not
Oh, that's right.
historically because he's not dead yet.
Yeah,
He's still
he's still
alive.
alive.
But I'm trying to think. Oh, you know what? Maybe I would think about like would be Magellan because didn't he go around the world but by
Yes.
sailing?
Did he go
Mhm.
around the world, or I thought
Well, I know
he didn't
he
quite
made
make it?
he made it to the
He got
Philippines.
halfway around the world.
He didn't make it back.
Oh, he did it.
Yeah,
His GPS failed, and he
that's one way of putting it.
But see, like it's just so funny because nowadays it's so easy to go around the world. But can you imagine back then where they didn't have all this modern technology? Why that would be just like such a big deal
Right.
to
Yeah.
make it.
To look at the vast ocean and be like, I'm just gonna head in that direction and see what's out there, and just hopefully there's because some people believe the world was flat and it ended, and that you would just fall
yeah, that
off
they
the
were going to
earth.
fall
Yeah,
off or something at the end, right? It's
Yeah.
and they
All,
all and they all thought they were always landing in India.
yeah. Well, and I mean they did kind of know that the earth was round because of like the way the shadows work. They figured that out in ancient times. They came to that conclusion. So, but there were probably debates because how can you really prove that?
You
by
can't.
not falling off the edge of the planet. I think was
Yeah.
the
Okay, so we're gonna close the chat when it comes to the answers. Let's go ahead and give them their answer. So the first thinking cap question:
Yeah.
Alexander the Great was born in which geographical region? He was born in D, Macedonia. Macedonia. So I did see a lot of people put D, so a lot of people got that one right. And then which of the following was not written by William Shakespeare? And that is E, A Tale of Two Cities.
Yeah.
So Nate, who wrote that?
Or A.
I mean, A or E, yes. Tale of Two Cities.
That was Charles Dickens.
See, so
Yeah.
that's not
I probably would
Shakespeare.
have interviewed Dickens also and be like, why was everything you wrote so long winded? Were you getting paid by the word?
Really, all of his books are long.
Yes, they are so long. And it's
and I
just
don't
like,
think they had copy machines or printers back then.
No,
Like we
and
do here. So.
typewriters,
yeah,
right?
they wrote like they had nothing better to do. They didn't have social media. So it's like, just put more words into this story.
See, that's probably it. They had nothing else to do. Like they had nowhere to go because they couldn't drive or fly, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
they had
let,
nothing
let me
else to
just
do
write
but
another
write.
1,000 pages here using
And
my quill.
And that's another reason why I would want to interview someone from back then, because a lot of that stuff would have made sense. It's like, yeah, I want to read a long book because if it's short, I'm just going to be sitting here in the dark because I don't have electricity and lights
And nothing else.
and nothing else to do. So,
Yeah, I do remember though in high school when I had my American Lit class where all the books we had to read were very long. Like they couldn't pick something from like Jane Austen, which was just like a few hundred pages, right?
yeah.
So that is pretty cool. We are running out of time, but I just want to thank everyone on the chat for giving us your feedback and who you would want to talk to in history. And Robert, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure having you on.
Oh, thank you. No, this was a blast. I loved coming onto the show with you guys, and and our audience here at South Central States.
Cool. And you know what? Maybe we need to do another show with you again sometime soon.
Anytime, anytime.
That way we could both have our hour segments.
I know. Fastest 30 minutes on radio. We both are,
I
right?
know, I know. And so thank you all for tuning in. If you can, hit the like button, subscribe. Tune in again next week where we will be here again, 9 o'clock. But before we go, we always want to give our final shout outs. We'd like to thank our INC radio station manager, Brother Wally Taray, also our CFO coordinator and SEPSI president, Brother Angelo Eranio Manalo, and of course, our executive minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo. Thank you for allowing us to put programs on like this and for sharing with everybody and having fun.
Yeah, stay warm out there.
We're trying in Florida.
Why? How cold is it over there?
It is a balmy 61 degrees right now,
Oh my goodness.
and
Yeah.
I've got a
It
winter
was
jacket.
it was
Very nice.
27 when I left the house and I still have snow on my front lawn. So
Oh.
see you guys next week.